leave here, your adventure will really be over. Your friends will follow you out of the underground. I think I'm ready. What's that giant ball? We call that the sun, my friend. That's the sun. Wowie! I can't believe I'm finally meeting the sun. I could stand here and watch this for hours. Yes, it is beautiful, is it not? But we should really think about what comes next. Everyone, this is the beginning of a bright new future. An era of peace between humans and monsters. Frisk, I have something to ask of you. Will you act as our ambassador to the humans? Be the ambassador? Yes. Frisk will be the best ambassador, and I, the great Papyrus, will be the best mascot. I will go make a good first impression. Someone's got to keep him from getting into trouble. See you guys. It seems that everyone is quite eager to set off. I don't know. I almost don't want to ask. Everyone is waiting. Alright, let's see. Snowdrake by Magnolia Porter, Ice Cap by Magnolia Porter, Semi-successful comedian thinking about its hat. Okay, so some of these I didn't quite perfect because I'm assuming the yellow tags mean that I got like a perfect or like max solution to whatever their thing is. Hey, dog. Undyed, designed by Toa, armored by Tammy, fashion help. Outfits designed by Toby. Yay! And there was Onya-san. Aaron by Tammy, reluctantly. Moldbug. Idyllic life on the beach. Washua. Timmy. That dummy. Shiren. Takey piano lessons. Yeah, I didn't perfect Shiren. I know I missed something with that. Mediton. Oh, hey, Burger Pants. Sunderplane, Vulcan. Finally confesses what I don't. Muffet Spider success with a new bakery. The Royal Guards. Yeah. Use your imagination. Final Frogget and Whimsalot, I fought once and died and then never fought them again because I was able to go around them, so... Magic, Night. Hey there, Amalgamates. Living with their families. Ad score. That faceplant. Tutorial. Alright. Ready? No! Dang it! Ah! No, I can't. Oh, that's really... There you go. Well, I got some of those once I started actually trying instead of giving up. Oh, dang. Oh, damn you and your names. Damn you, credits. Damn you. Oh, you're really hard to dodge. How... Hmm... Thoughts? Okay, thoughts. This, this will be some good music for thoughts. Hands down, one of the best games I've ever played. In terms of the complexity of its interaction with the idea of mechanics, and yet the clarity of it. So normally when you get these kinds of games, and there's a little bit here, but normally when you get these kinds of games that do that sort of recursive commentary, like recursive self-commentary and, self-awareness, things like these, like, oh, well, if you exit the game and then restart it at certain points, then things change, or or it will, like, react to things, if you do something and then back up to a save. You end up with choice paralysis. There's so many options that it becomes, or there's so much second guessing that it becomes difficult to actually progress, because you're not sure if you're doing things right or not. Like, it creates too much uncertainty. I think this one manages to strike just a nigh perfect balance between those, so that even though you're aware that that is a thing that is going on, even though you're perhaps going to become incidentally aware that that is a thing that's going on, it's not it's not constantly hanging over your head, in the sense that, like, you feel like it's like, oh, well, I'm screwing up and I'm missing out. It is still possible to figure out, like, to have at least some confidence in the decisions that you're making. I know that a lot of these other kinds of games, like, I give up on them because it becomes so unclear. Like, are you actually doing something useful? Are you actually moving forward? Are you missing out on too much? And that becomes overwhelming. So a great example is when you reach a fork in the path. You have two different ways that you can go, but it's not certain which one is which. And so a standard tactic from seasoned RPG players, because you don't have any information to make a decision. So a standard tactic from RPG players is to pick one, go until you hit a point that it looks like there's some sort of gating moment, and then back up and go explore the other direction. Toby has built this in a way where, for the most part, like, it's pretty easy to tell which is the way that leads forward and which is the side route. And in the cases where it's not quite so obvious, it's usually intentionally not quite so obvious, because you're going into a more sort of freeform area. So, like, in the later section of the power plant, like the upper level just before the palace, like, there's the giant, grid network of rooms and hallways, and so it's intentional. Like which one you pick doesn't really matter because it's all part of the same complex, and the exits are all on the far side. Things like that. But it's doing things like that. It's doing that sort of split path where you have these options of like you can go left or you can go right, except instead of left or right, it is you can choose option A, and then, well, if you back up or if you like bail out and reload, what's going to happen. And for the most part, even when you do those things, they're lightweight enough, like they're small enough that it's not like, oh, well, you're ruining a perfect playthrough or you're going to miss out on huge chunks of stuff. It's mostly just like it really is kind of what you would define as an Easter egg. It's light, it's small, it becomes valuable to the people who find them, but the absence is not felt without it. So the moral choice system, like, in a lot of ways, and here's sort of a great example that comes from this, is that it places a lot on the player. It places a lot of the impact on the player because there are very few intrinsic motivators or intrinsic punishments. Games, generally speaking, particularly over the last 15 years or so, have been very much about, and mainstream games still are and will be because it's a simple way of doing it. They are about self-contained motivators. That you do something and you get more points, or you do something and you complete a level. Undertale is very much about extrinsic motivators, particularly ones that are super, super extrinsic, that your moral judgment, or the way that the game judges your morality, is purely based on how, on the actual consequences that you feel. Because the idea of being in trouble, being in trouble is a fake idea. It doesn't really mean anything. Trouble is just sort of a sensation, but it is a real sensation in the sense that it is a thing that we experience, and Undertale utilizes that. The fight against Toriel I mentioned this back when we first went through it, but I want to mention it again because I think it is brilliant how it does it. That the puzzle, if you think about it is a puzzle, but the solution to the puzzle is based on your patience as a person, you as a human sitting in your chair. It's based on your patience and your willingness to stick through and believe in your plan of action. That if you refuse to fight Toriel, it will work out. That you need to have faith in yourself that you can solve that puzzle by just holding out and not giving in. Well past the point where the dialogue has begun to repeat, and at the point where you're going to be going as a player, normally you're going to be saying, oh, well, and we see it all the time through this, that it's you hit a point where it's oh, dialogue's repeating, okay, move on. The procedure has hit its limit and is telling me, I am being given indicators that it's all right, you're done, this has been exhausted, move on. And that Toriel fight says it's no, we have given you information leading up to this point where we have said that it is possible to not engage in violence. We have assured you that it is possible to not engage in violence. Now test yourself and test your willingness to believe that over the normal signifiers that you normally encounter. So it gives you a video game signifier of repeating text that is in conflict with, or that signifies something that is in conflict with a previous bit of information, which is that you can not attack. You can choose to not attack. You can spare someone, so Frogget says, you can spare someone, and you will have to spare someone who, in a situation where, they're not yellow. Like, their text is not yellow, and you can't just literally spare them. So these two conflicting bits of information are presented to you, and you have to make a choice. Which do you believe? Do you believe the signifiers of the game and the game language of repeating text and no clear forward progress? Or do you believe the social signifiers of what Frogget has told you? And by and large, Undertale succeeds because of how heavily it utilizes social signifiers in conflict with the game signifiers. And that's why people love it, and that's why they call it subversive. That's why they call it, challenging. And it is taking two different languages that we know, the language of video games and the language of social engagements, and placing them in contest against each other and seeing which ones you are going to believe when. And it's great, it's wonderful, and that's why it's able to be so impactful, is because by constantly calling attention to social signifiers that exist, in the language of how we relate to one another, it's able to activate that side of your brain, that side of your, the part of you that says, it's like, yeah, I want to buy into other people. I want to engage with other people. And once it's sort of reminded you of that humanity, it's really easy then for you as a person to buy into its characters and to fall in love with its characters and to, let them into you as an extension of, family. If it hadn't done that, if it had simply presented these characters, but without explicitly calling attention to the social signifiers that you would normally use when interacting with other humans, this would be a charming little game that would be a lot of people's favorites, and it would still be a really good game. It would not be a masterpiece. Like, it would not be a great game. It would be a good, charming indie game, a nice little RPG with a twist of like, hey, you can do sort of little puzzles to, you can do non-combat puzzles instead of fighting, and it gives you an alternate ending. And you'd be like, hey, that's cute, that's different. But by explicitly calling in those, hey, if you insult someone in real life, what are the consequences of that? Because in real life, we don't actually face video game style consequences for the things that we do. If I insult someone, the consequence really is just that I've hurt them. And this is the kind of thing that BioShock would have loved to be able to do, because BioShock, the first one, pivots so heavily on that sort of notion of like, hey, well, here's this worldview that fails to understand the human cost of its operation. And Undertale does sort of the same thing. It's like except it succeeds in reminding you of the human cost of your actions. That choosing to be friends with someone, well, what's the reward of choosing to be friends with someone? Well, you have a friend. You don't level up. You don't gain another, you don't gain another 40 MP and a new PK Fire. You have a friend. You have someone that you can call. You have a place that you can go visit. You have people you can joke with and that you can laugh with. You have people who are gonna have your back later on. That is the reward of not being an asshole. And that's brilliant, and that's great, and it manages to tap into that so well. And I'm already sort of, I've already sort of tumbled across a few of the things that, like, the ways that they communicate that, and like, as people in the comments are pointing out, it's like you don't gain love, but you don't gain love the video game keyword, but you gain love. You don't gain XP, but and the brilliant little thing of like, it's like, okay, if you do the pacifist ending, you ended at level 1. because, you know, there is no video game reward from choosing friendship. It does not give you, you know, yes, you occasionally get like resources. You get money from befriending certain people, but you don't even get it all the time. It's not like, oh well, at the end of every single conflict, regardless of which one you chose, like, oh well, you get your XP and you get your gold. It's just sometimes maybe you get material resources from befriending people, but you never get XP. You don't get the video game convention. You then don't engage with that conceit at all. So yeah, no, it's been wonderful. It's been fantastic. I laughed, I cried, I was touched, my feels, my heart. I did not know. All right, let's back up a couple weeks to when Undertale was hitting everybody's game of the year. People had been talking about it for weeks. A lot of my friends liked it, and people was, you know, and I was seeing the anti-fans be like getting angry about people engaging with Undertale, and I was watching the I was watching the GameFAQs poll, and I was sort of at a position where I was like, okay, I am probably going to like this game, but I figured my level of engagement was honestly going to be about to the level of like BioShock Infinite. I really liked BioShock Infinite. Like, if you've seen my video on it, you know, I like BioShock Infinite. I think it's a great game, problems notwithstanding. And I can talk about it a lot, but that's kind of it. I really engaged with BioShock Infinite. I really liked it. End of story. So I expected to come out of Undertale saying that it's like, oh yeah, I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really, you know, I was assuming I was going to think that it's like, oh well, it's probably going to be pretty smart. It's probably going to be charming. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm gonna want to recommend it to other people. Game of the year, yes, no, maybe. Sure, we can, you know, figuring that we could kind of agree, you know, I wouldn't be surprised that it's on people's Game of the Year list, but, you know, yeah, whatever. If you don't, you know, fair enough. Now that I've finished it, if this isn't on your Game of the Year list, you're a monster. Just, you know, I'm being a little bit facetious when I say that, but not a whole ton facetious. Like, if this is not on your Game of the Year list, you are a monster. This is just fabulous and brilliant, and one of the best games, and most impacting and honest and charming and spirited and heartfelt and heartwarming and touching and sincere games to have come out in really ever. It has gained a reputation that it in every way deserves, and just kudos, absolute kudos to all the people who made it. So yeah. So now, actually, here we go. Now, here I guess is a tempering thing. Noelle is pointing out in the chat that it really does require video game literate people. Yes, this is going to be a fair criticism, and this would be maybe the one thing. You know, not everything is perfect. I mean, and yeah, not everything is perfect. Everything ultimately has its flaws, and Undertale does require you to speak the languages that it is in. Like, if you don't speak the language, Undertale is not going to do the greatest job of introducing you to the language. Is that technically a flaw? Yes. Am I going to hold that against it? No, because while it does put it in a position that it is not for everyone, that is just the simple reality of things. You know, there is absolutely fantastic filmmaking coming out of Czechoslovakia that I have trouble engaging with because I don't speak Czech. And wait, did I say Czechoslovakia? Czech Republic. There was actually some great filmmaking coming out of Czechoslovakia back when Czechoslovakia still existed. You know, there's a great filmmaking coming out of the Czech Republic that I have trouble engaging with, or that I don't find fully impacting because I don't speak the literal language of Czech, and I don't speak the cultural language of Czech, of the Czech Republic. And so, you know, there is that barrier there to engagement with it. So that's just kind of the reality of art, that all art has limitations in terms of who is going to be able to really well and truly engage with it. I would say, however, that this is still, while it does require that literacy, it is not so dense in it that it's impossible to learn. And I would almost argue, well, having someone help you through it, I have to think on that. The idea of of what's it going to be like if someone helps you through it. I think a lot of the in jokes, like the anime in jokes and tsundere, I think that stuff is auxiliary enough that the core value is not going to be lost if someone doesn't get those jokes. You know, the overall tone and the overall, like, core to it, and what we were talking about earlier, that here's a thing that I almost feel bad about. I really want to, like, recommend Undertale to people in the broad terms that I would normally describe it in, except I can't. Because if I tell someone, if I give it that sort of logline of like, oh, it's this great story about a community coming to grips with loss, that's a massive spoiler. Like that, you know, you are then revealing this huge sort of endgame culmination, like, from the beginning. And I would consider that to be a spoiler, because the game doesn't admit to you that that's what it's about until very, very late in, even if it's alluding to it. You know, it foreshadows that sensation, but it is actively misdirecting you from making that conclusion until you reach the very end. So that's kind of tricky for me, because I really feel like it's like, hey, this is the terms that I want to couch it in. This is the terms that I want to pitch it in, but I can't. I don't feel like, I feel like by telling someone that, I am robbing them of joy that they don't know they would get to experience otherwise. Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, I think as my immediate sort of, I am super hyped right now. I am mega hyped right now. I am hyped on it right now, and I will definitely tone down, I will definitely tone down some of my, like, calling people monsters for not, you know, inhuman, calling people inhuman for not, you know, immediately having it be the greatest game ever. But I'm in a mood right now where that just kind of feels good to say. It's not true. There are a lot of legitimate reasons for someone to kind of back away from it. Especially if they screw up going through, that definitely could, you know, is going to have an impact. And there's I was actually talking with a friend going into this, or like not going into this, on the way home this evening, where, you know, it's only about 10 hours, but 10 hours is still a pretty decent amount, and 10 hours assumes that you're at least okay at the bullet hell stuff, and it assumes that you've got a clear idea of what you want to do from the outset. Like, this is still, I think if you were going in totally blind, like if you just said like, hey, you know, Mom, here's a great game, yes, it's going to run on, it's going to run on your 6-year-old laptop, you don't know a whole lot about it, but I think you'll really enjoy it. If you just put it in a situation like that, you are probably looking at 20 hours, 20 to 25 hours just to kind of get really to the impactful stuff. And that's, that is definitely a limitation. I am torn on what to kind of say about that, because on one hand, it could be shorter. On the other hand, I'm okay with it being as long as it is. 10 hours, so for the people that it is really aimed at, 10 hours is about perfect, but it doesn't, this is kind of looping back on myself, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think if anything is going to be a mark off it, or is going, is that it isn't quite as universal as the theoretical best game ever actually would be. The theoretical best game ever, which does not exist. And in that regard, actually, the best game ever... No, it's not Portal. I was going to say it's Portal because it's really super accessible, humor and concept-wise, except that's not entirely true because the mechanics, like the physical playing of first-person shooter-style controls of like WASD and the mouse controls and mouse looking around, that physical language is actually really hard, and for people who don't know it, particularly people who are like already a little bit older and not super inclined towards it, it is not accessible at all, and that's kind of unfortunate. So yeah, I think for the video game community, it is absolutely, like, I would actually still maintain like that it's still one of the best games to come along in ages and ages and ages. Tetris probably, someone in the chat is saying that Tetris is the best game ever, and that's probably actually true. It is a really challenging, it is a highly scalable puzzle game that maintains challenge at a lot of different levels, and it's eminently accessible. So, yeah. So Tetris is the best game ever. We have solved it. Pack up. We're done. Games are done. Yeah. I think I'm rambling now. I think this is interesting, but it's also getting kind of circular. I saw chat mentioning something that if I quit the game right now and reloaded it, something would happen. I don't know what, but something is waiting for me when I relaunch, and I am not sure if I want to see that now or if I want it to be a thing to haunt me as I come back and start a genocide run. Now, a lot of people, let's talk about the genocide run real quick. I am going to do the genocide run, and a lot of people, I'm going to take the hit for you. I can handle it. I can handle it. Emotionally, I am resilient enough that I can get through a genocide run, and so I will do it. I will take the hit for you, so that you can experience it without needing to do it yourself. It will be hard. We will get through it together. We will be terrible together. Or I will be terrible, and you can sit on the sidelines and look horrified. And yeah, I almost feel like, now this becomes an interesting question. Like, should you genocide first? Now, people were talking about the endings that like you basically get the neutral ending one way or another, and I don't know. Or is it possible to get the like full genocide ending from the word go? Is it best to like start with genocide and then, because like then you need to like start over from the beginning, and that's another 10 hours. You know, so it ends up being what, like 20 hours in order to complete both sort of major branches or more? I don't know. How long does genocide take? So I don't know. Everybody's saying you're going to need a guide, Dan. The requirements are very strict. Terrible idea to genocide first. Definitely don't genocide first. Starting with genocide is a bad idea. You will see it is the one wrong way to play Undertale. I would recommend not starting with genocide. I don't. Okay, all right. Everybody is. It's a bad idea if you have feelings. And see, now this is going back. This is going back to the. Okay, now people are saying that there's actual like mechanical reasons that make it untenable. There's a reasons why No Mercy is a bad way to start. You'll learn them. Hard to answer without spoiling the crap out of things. It should be neutral, pacifist, genocide, pacifist rerun. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so that's a lot of some interesting insight there, and I will look into that, or rather, I guess I won't look into it. I will discover it. So now, what I was going right. I had this train of thought that I was going to say is that people's responses to me saying that whole genocide thing is that half the responses are very much based in the social cue element of it. Like, no, don't do it. It will destroy your feelings. It is very difficult emotionally. And yet other people are focusing on the mechanical aspect, that it's like, well, no, it's actually really tricky and really deliberate, and you need to go out of your way to do specific things. So yeah, that will be interesting. Red Sun 47 has a good point. Undertale is interesting in that kind of is designed for you to have foreknowledge while playing it, or at least it feels like it does. Yes. Okay, we're not going to end the stream because we're going to talk about that. Undertale, this ties into all of this other stuff that we've been talking about, because Undertale assumes that it is being played as part of a greater community. You know, that people are sharing their experiences, that people are talking about it, that people are spoiling it, you know, but that people are willing to engage with one another about their experiences. It is aware that, like, people are going to be, you know, they're going to be filling up wikis, they're going to be filling up subreddits, they're going to be tweeting about it, they're going to be starting Tumblrs, they're going to be starting art blogs, they're going to be making fan art, they're going to be making fan fiction, they're going to be making their own dissection videos, they're going to be putting guides on YouTube. It is aware that that is an environment that exists out, like, around it, and it is accessing that. It is tapping into that social element in order to, you know, really amp up the engagement. You know, it is using, and you do it instinctively, because again, the game is activating those social cues. It is getting you thinking in those terms, and it is getting, you know, so it's taking these things, it's taking these events and these challenges and these problems, and it is placing them in the context of friendship and communication and asking questions, and, you know, not just accepting not just accepting reality as presented as absolute. And so when you're already in that mindset, it's a natural sort of leap to make, that it's like, oh, I've hit a problem. It is well and good for me to go ask someone for help, or like to look up an answer, to look up a solution, to ask someone like, hey, I'm kind of stuck here, you know, and to then share that stuff and to pool knowledge and to cooperate on coming up with solutions and figuring out where all of the little tidbits are hidden. And, you know, Undertale is more than just itself, and maybe that's a long-term sort of issue. Like maybe Undertale won't have the bite that it does 20 years from now. Like the 20 years from now, people will look back on Undertale, and it will be kind of a social phenomenon rather than a thing that continues to stand. You know, it's not going to be a movie. It's going to be a movie like Blair Witch more than a movie like Chinatown. Chinatown, you watch it now and you get out at the end and you go, oh, I see why this movie is a big deal. Shawshank Redemption, you come out and you're like, oh, I see why this is a big deal. Big Lebowski, I see why this is a big deal. The Blair Witch Project, you watch it now and you're like, okay, that was something, you know. Wasn't the worst movie I'd ever seen, not the best, because Blair Witch Project is about a point in time. It's about a marketing, you know, it's about a marketing campaign. It's about the internet. It's about the way that the social phenomenon of Blair Witch spread and thus impacted people's experience of the movie. There is a risk that Undertale will be more of a Blair Witch than a Big Lebowski. That is a risk. I don't think it will be quite that bad. I think Undertale, as a self-contained thing, helps you discover it. That even though 20 years from now, someone who wants to truly discover it will probably need to kind of go through a 40-hour process of figuring out a lot of stuff for themselves. But in the end, I think it is still self-contained enough to succeed and to persist. So, yeah. And yeah, I think I need to go make some fan art now or something. I don't know. I should actually just go really take all of this and write it down into a little bit more cohesive of a summary, strip out the spoilers that I can, or maybe just make a totally spoilerific. Actually, that's really what I should do. I should make a nice spoilerific little thing talking about Undertale. And yeah. So I think we'll leave it there for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me on this adventure. Friends of Dogs and Monsters, go now. Have a good night. Happy New Year. Happy 2016. Something, 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 something.